I'm a 24-year-old female, and I have been living in a suburban area of a relatively large city in the U.S. Since the start of the pandemic, I had gotten laid off from my job and ended up falling behind on bills and keeping up with rent. Because it was so hard to find work during times like this, I often had to rely on my parents to pay for some of my expenses. With my parents struggling as well, it was hard for them to keep up with their own responsibilities, so I felt bad and would somehow make it up to them. One day, I had just gotten into a huge fight with my landlord about payments that were past due, even with him knowing my situation. Now, with me being upset and having a very bad day, I started texting my boyfriend just to see if he could cheer me up somehow. We started texting back and forth, and I eventually sent him a picture of me in an outfit that I thought looked cute. As soon as it was sent, however, his response was something that I wasn't expecting. Babe, who's that in the background?" At first, I was a bit confused, so I checked the photo again and zoomed in to see a black figure appearing out from my closet. I felt my blood run cold and didn't dare to turn around to see what was there. All the while, my boyfriend started sending me frantic texts asking if I was okay. I casually walk out of my room, lock the door, and run downstairs to get the security guard and explained everything, almost crying to him. Needless to say, we get up on the elevator and go to my room, and what we found there still chilled me to the bone. My closet door had been fully open as well as my window. However, this made absolutely no sense as I lived on the 7th floor of the building, and there was no way that whoever was in my closet could have jumped out. I still don't know what to think of this experience till this day. This happened when I was 13. I lived in a duplex with my dad and brother. It was a 2-bedroom, and I shared a room with my dad while my older brother had his own room. It was not uncommon for both of them to have plans at night, while I stayed home to play video games alone. This night was no different. My dad was probably at some bar, and my brother, who knows where he was. I was playing the original Resident Evil on PlayStation, and at around midnight, my eyelids were getting too heavy, and I decided to go to bed. I slept with my bedroom door wide open. Now, not one time in the years that we lived in this place did my dad or brother come home by entering through the back sliding glass door. A couple times my brother didn't have his key for one reason or another, and he would knock on my bedroom window and ask me to let him in. My dad always had his key and would always come home through the front door. On this night, I heard the back door slide open. It was an old door, and sliding it open wasn't easy. It was also very loud, so I heard it crystal clearly. I lay in bed wide-eyed, my imagination going crazy. I heard whoever it was walk through the dining room, through the kitchen, and then into the living room. They made no attempt to be quiet. After a brief silent pause, I saw someone walk by my bedroom doorway. This scared me so much, as you can imagine, and my heart throbbed. Whoever was in my house walked into the bathroom right next to my bedroom and flipped the light on. The light poured into my bedroom, and I was laying there, terrified, completely exposed by the light from the bathroom. Why didn't I shout out for my brother or my dad? Because, like I mentioned, I knew it wasn't them, and there was no one else that it could have been that would have made sense. Not a family member, not a friend. I knew it was someone that did not belong. The person then walked out of the bathroom, left the light on, and went into my brother's room and started making a ton of noise. It sounded like they were searching for something. All I did was lay there, shivering. After a few more minutes, the person walked by my bedroom again. I expected at any moment a stranger would walk into my room, but they didn't. I heard them making noise in the living room, walking around, huffing and puffing. Then they started walking back and forth by my bedroom repeatedly, into the bathroom, and back out, over and over. At the time, I was 100% sure they were messing with me for some reason. They knew I was there, whoever they were. I heard the person making noises. By this and by the huge figure that I saw walking back and forth, I knew that it was a man. They continued walking around each room except the one that I was in. And then suddenly, I heard them walk back through the house, to the back sliding door, open it, and then leave. I lay there in bed, terrified, wondering what just happened. After a while, out of sheer exhaustion, I fell asleep. In the morning, I found that my dad and brother were both home. I have asked both of them dozens of times, and they both promise it was not them. Plus, again, why would they go through the back door and then leave again through the back door? This was 21 years ago, and I will never know who it was or why they were there. Nothing was missing either. What really makes me wonder to this day, why did they never come into my bedroom? The door was wide open, and they walked by it at least 20 times. So this happened to me on Thursday, April 25th, and I still can't shake off how terrifying and strange it was. So I was home alone, getting ready for my 12 o'clock college class that morning, and I opened my blinds to let some natural light in. I glanced out my window to see a man in his mid-30s wearing a baseball cap, roaming around my property with his hands on his hips, walking with a lot of weird confidence. Our yard is kind of like a cliff, and it looks over onto our 5 acres of property down below. I live in the Pienval, so it's a pretty scenic view. I was really confused and thought maybe it was a worker that my mom had hired for our renovations on the house, admiring the view. I'm a little bit uncomfortable at this point cause the dude walks to the side of my house, out of sight. I head upstairs to see him now roaming around my front yard and my driveway, looking at things, checking out my house, etc. He still hasn't seen me at this point. I call my dad and ask him if we had hired anyone to come by the house, and he says not that he knows of and tells me that he's going to call my mom and ask her and then call me back. I'm waiting for the cop when I notice this strange dude's car. It's a white Honda with no license plates, just parked parallel to my front door. The dude still hasn't seen me, and he's still wandering around. So I take this as an opportunity to remember that we have a security system, and I armed it so that if he did try to break in, it would immediately alert the police. If this was some sort of professional or worker, he would have rang my doorbell or knocked at least once. He did neither. Just then, I get a call back from my dad saying either him or my mom hired anyone to come by today, and that I need to call our local police station immediately. I went back downstairs after making sure to lock every door and window upstairs and called my city's police station. I explained to a woman on the other end what is happening, and she decides that she's not going to send an officer out and instead gives me a number to call their emergency dispatch line and told me to talk to them. I call the number she gave me, and immediately I get an automated message saying thank you for calling the non-emergency hotline. Nobody is available to take your call right now. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. At this point, I'm really irritated because 15 minutes has passed, and this weird dude is still lurking around my house while I'm home alone, and apparently that wasn't enough to warrant an emergency to the lady I called at my local police department. I hung up and decided to call 911. After getting in touch with the 911 operator, I was asked a series of questions about his appearance before they would even alert officers near me to start heading towards my house. The whole thing seemed really weird. Nobody was in a hurry to have officers come up to my place when I was a younger girl home alone with a strange dude. I asked the officer if I could stay on the line with her when she finally, after what seemed like forever, alerted police to come to where I was. She agreed, and I went back upstairs to check on the weird guy, and he is now sitting in his unplated Honda, either listening to a radio show extremely loud or on a phone call with someone through his car. It was a very prominent, loud, male voice coming from his car. Then, all of a sudden, I hear the tone you hear when someone hangs up on you and the operator was no longer on the line. I was really confused when my thoughts were interrupted by an unrecognized phone number calling me. I assumed it was the operator calling me back, so I picked it up. Instead, I was greeted by really creepy, heavy breathing. I am not sure who it was, but it really freaked me out. I hung up immediately and dialed back 911. I had been pretty calm up to this point, but that phone call put me in panic mode. I got on the phone with another operator who already knew my situation and address before I could even explain it to her. She said the cops were on their way. 20 minutes had passed at this point. The dude is still here, in his car, and the cops aren't. Keep in mind, I live in a smaller town, so there is no reason why it took the cops as long as it did to come down. Finally, this dude is leaving my driveway right as the cops pull in, and they stop him and ask him a few questions. A cop then comes to my door and hands me a sketchy-looking flyer saying it was just a landscaper. He said he had an appointment. I was really relieved and irritated that it was just a dude my mom had hired until I realized it wasn't. I called my mom back and said the cops said that it was just a landscaper that you hired and that he had an appointment. My mom replies with, "I can assure you we never hired a landscaper. We don't even need one." So, creepy dude who could potentially be posing as a landscaper to traffic people or rob their houses. Let's not meet.